Так, приколы со светом. Свет пропал. Ой, так, на чем я остановился? Outlet, что такое outlet? Outlet should be used in parent root elements. To render their child root elements. The parent root matches exactly, it will render a child index root. Nothing of the is no index root. The child coming alongside the parent. Root outlet, we can rewrite the profile component to set an outlet which will get replaced by the various profiles when that route is visited. The component gets replaced with the children component when their paths are visited. Ничего не работает. Profile children. Иначе. Что ничего не работает? В атлете ничего. You want to run something as default component when no pass is added to profile. You can add an index route to the children. Create a default profile component. Index tag with the default profile as a child to the profile route. You should be able for content. The index path is rendered, but the example brings another dilemma sometimes when to render content according to the URLs. That's here. It means that we should be able to render content dynamically. Itself. You can do so with dynamic segments. The colon has a special meaning, turning the past section after it. The past section after it into a dynamic segment. Manage dynamic changing values, then position of the URL like name. It's going to be URL params or params in short. It can be used with the help of the use params hook. Can those rewrite the profile component as the follow? Name, use params. Next pass doesn't work. Да у меня ничего не работало и до этого. I think space doesn't work this anymore. Pass no params actually profile pass doesn't make much sense without an actual name. Also, whose profile is it's supposed to show right, so the application shows an error. This can be good, so how do you show default patch in the case the user visits a wrong or unused path? You can pass in an error element argument here. Привет, привет. Да, потихоньку, нормально все, в принципе. Учим React полным ходом. У тебя как дела? Что у тебя нового? another element to the configuration and check it out. Unmentioned path renders an error page. Path element, error element. Ты же устроился на работу, которая не нравится только что. Жесть, а как так получилось? Хочу что-то поделать, но не знаю что. Что за работа? Я вот читаю, ты в фласке там копался. Проверки сетей, такие как суши. Проверка сетей, таких как суши в офисе. Звучит круто. А как ты их будешь проверять? Звучит так-то весело. Let's also refactor our roads to a component of their own. We can add the weather conditional logic we want. It exists as a hook. Remember, we can't use hooks outside of React component. If you don't have any need for conditional rendering, need to nonetheless to have them separate. Create a new router just component. Просто. Это просто по камерам слежу, что они делают. И все, составляю отчет. Хорошо или плохо они работают. Ну, в принципе, не такая уж и плохая работа. Только уровнем оплаты тогда. Но муторная. Ничего, нормально. На покушать хватит. Там распетляешь потом. А чё там твой фласк? Just component. Что-то выучить, не знаю что. Вообще нет идей, как определиться. Не понравился. Тут сложно. Сложно что-то сказать. Я даже не знаю, что сказать, как определиться. Наверное, как-то из внутреннего желания, из внутреннего интереса. Какой-то внутренний прям запал должен быть. Типа, если не знаешь, как определиться, то, возможно, у тебя и полного интереса к этому нет. То, что меня ничего сейчас не интересует абсолютно, только легкое мимолетное удовольствие только. Понимаю, понимаю я тебя. М, Понимаю. Ничего сейчас не интересует. Но если не интересует, смотри, у тебя есть работа, то есть, ну, ты есть крыша, есть еда, ну, короче, ты более-менее в комфорте. Поэтому, если тебя сейчас ничего не интересует, то как минимум не загоняй себя. То есть просто как-то расслабься, потому что у меня, в принципе, все базовое для существования есть. И, и просто что-то пробуй. Вот у меня так и было. Вот я тоже долгое время не знал, чем заняться. Вообще просто ничего интересно не интересовало. Но как-то начал вот что-то там смотрю, вот что-то, ну, звучит прикольно. Типа, и начинаю как-то постепенно в этом разбираться. И потом бывало, что мне не заходило. И я закидывал. Вот сейчас, в принципе, мне интересно учить JS. И я вот чисто ну, из-за интереса все это делаю. То есть я Blender учил полгода, потом мне стало скучно, я его закинул. Ну, то есть пропал интерес. До этого финансы учил, 2 года занимался этим. Ну, было интересно, я просто закинул, что трейдингом занимался, потому что, ну, это казино. Тот способ, которым я занимался, это просто казино было. Поэтому я и закинул. И все это было, все вот эти вот занятия, которые я себе находил, были просто, ну... То есть я себя не заставлял их делать, они просто в какой-то момент что-то где-то я услышал, прочитал, мне как-то зацепило, и я начал в этом разбираться глубже и глубже. Поэтому как минимум не загоняйся жестко. Типа, ну, рано или поздно тебя что-то заинтересует. Ну а пока как-то, ну, получай удовольствие от работы. Там, не знаю. Ну, оно само как-то приходит всегда. То есть его специально не найдешь. Потому что, ну, если специально что-то так себя заставлять, то ты еще сильнее загонишься. Потому что тебе будет казаться, что ты что-то пытаешься сделать, в итоге тебе это перестает нравиться. Ты пытаешься что-то другое сделать, тоже не заходит, ты бросаешь, и ты еще больше себя нагоняешь на то, что ты типа что-то делаешь, но все не так. А ты это делаешь просто, ну, потому что ты себя заставляешь. Поэтому реально, если есть работа, крыша, то есть зарплаты достаточно, ну, чтобы ну, там, покушать, там куда-то сходить, погулять. Ну, просто так, не напрягаться по тому поводу, что ты сейчас там завтра умрешь с голоду или еще что-то. Или не заплатишь за квартиру. А интерес к чему-то, ну, придет. М, Так. Мгм. Router.js. So you can simply add this router.js component to the index.js file. File. М, Так. Simple main.js. Да, вставим. И что-то у меня ничего не работает. Роутер. Да чё у меня ничего не работает? Profile. Routes and navigation. When you face a need to decide when a certain route is rendered or not. In this case is authentication. We want to render certain routes based on if the user is logged in or not. If they are logged in, you may want to show some information about the user like well there are many ways to do so. One of the easiest way you can be conditionally creating a config for the router. You will often come across the need to reroute the user to a different URL programmatically. This is where the navigate component gets used. To change the current location when it is rendered, this component wrapped around use navigate and accepts the same arguments as props. A component-based version of the use navigate hook makes it easier to use this feature in React component subclass where hooks are not able to be used. Navigate, submit render, navigate to dashboard. Use as routes the user to the desired URL is render it. Get used is render. The component itself is wrapper around the use navigate hook that lets you navigate programmatically. So you'll even go back down the user's history. Use navigate. Your function has two signatures, is the path to value. Press delta you want to. Using replace true negation will replace the current entry in the history. Now, basically, to get started with React routing, there are a lot more features to React Route DOM, which are extremely useful but out of the scope of this lesson. We confident that the concepts covered above should be enough to get you through the React course. If you're interested in learning some more, we recommend you look into the history or match object. Definitely go and check out more advanced concepts once you're familiar with basics. SPA has been a hot topic ever since modern JS frameworks like React hit the scene. They promise all sort of benefits like dynamic user interaction, sliding fast load times, slowing rolled hanger, etc. But here you're stopped to wonder what's actually going on behind the scenes. If you're not using NSPA, are you stuck in the past? Well, let's explore. How non-SPA works, how they perform on the modern web. Spoiler, they're not a great choice as always. The key benefits and inner workings of SPA, a side-by-side visual comparison for juicy burgers. First off, how do non-SPAs work? Web development has been soaking in acronym soap lately, so I think it's worth clarifying what isn't in SPA first. If your site isn't inspired, you're likely using what's called server-based routing. A metaphor is in order here. Say you're at a formal sit-down restaurant with a waiter, a server, if you will. With a waiter. If you want the food, you will have to ask the waiter for the food you want. Wait a moment for the dish to get prepared. Receive your finished plate once it's done. This is how all websites work when you first visit them. You ask for what you want using URL like wait for the server to get back to you, loading spinner, and then enjoy your meals. A meal once it's ready. What if you want to order dessert? Heading back to our restaurant scenario, we'll go through the same flow as last time. Ask the waiter for the yummiest dessert, hand them your dirty plates, wait a moment for the dish to get prepared, receive a shiny new bubble with your ice cream sundae. There's an important bit I want to reiterate there. You hand over your dirty plates and get back a brand new one. This is why you will see a little loading bar reappear on every time you jump on a new page. Here's an example of 11T's documentation using a server-based routing. Where the loading bar engage whenever we click a link. At first it looks like you are still on the same page whenever you click those navigation links, and the browser is only refreshing the bits that change the documentation. But that's not really the case. Whenever you click a link, your browser is clearing your plates, removing everything from the page and pulling in fresh meal navigation, and also you're really reloading all those pieces of navigation every time you visit a new page, even they are already on your plate to begin with. Is that wasteful? It may sound like a browser doing a lot of extra work here, although this is still an issue that spas can help with. It's not as problematic as it used to be. Here's a few efficiency points to consider. HTML is super cheap to load and render, even though the browser is repainting the package from scratch every time. Is repainting the package from scratch every time. It only takes a few milliseconds to load that HTML skeleton. And the real expensive bits are the style scripts and images that the browser needs to fetch, which leads us to shared resources that need to get reloaded. For instance, say every documentation page pulls in the same CSS file. When you click another link that also pulls this CSS, the browser is smart enough to say, oh, I loaded this already. We'll just use that and apply it to the page. The same goes for images and font as well. This is all thanks to caching. If you want to go deeper, the Remix team has an excellent walkthrough caching documentation resource. Actual loading is shared resources is a problem, but what about painting those resources to the page over and over again? This brings us to the next page only appears when it's ready. Back in the day, there was a risk you would see a flash of white nothingness between clearing the plate and receiving the new one. But modern browsers have pretty much resolved this. Nice. Наконец. Let's wait for the signal that the next page isn't just done yet, but it also reads ready for you to view and interact with. Think of this like bringing your plate when it's ready to eat instead of bringing you a plate of ingredients you have to assemble yourself. Hibachi rendering, showing you the page painting process before it's ready to eat. Let's cool when browsers do it. This especially helps out pages that rely on blocking resources like JavaScript to render everything on the page. Here's a quick before and after shot by the Chrome team when they launched this concept. Disclaimer: the browser won't always wait for the next page to be interactive before showing it. It will still show the half-finished page if you're on a slow internet connection and the browser decides it's waited too long. Still, for snappier sites like Firmware shouldn't be a problem. Let's talk single page apps. So how do spas compare? Well, let's revisit that restaurant example from before. When you first visit the site using the spa approach, everything works pretty much the same. Ask the server for the food you want. Wait a moment for the dish to get prepared. So how do spas compare? There is a restaurant example from before. When site using spa approach, everything works pretty much the same. It's first for your food, wait a moment to the dish to get prepared, receive your finished plate when it's done. The page is done loading. Now the interesting part comes when you go back for a second. When you click a link on a spa, it replaces the typical server-based routing. Comes when you go back for a second. When you click a link on a spa, почему on an spa? Правильно так. Click on a spa, it replaces typical server-based routing with client-side routing. In other words, we process all link requests with client-side routing. In other words, we process all link requests using JavaScript we wrote ourselves instead of sending those requests over the server right away. Here's a code snippet to get your brain moving. We're gonna download the server for that resource. That responds to something we can work with. Now this is super simplified crux of spa. You never truly leave the page you started on. Instead, you intercept all future requests, link clicks, and handle the fetching yourself. You often do this using the fetch API native to all modern browsers as demo above. This way, I would think of spas as client-side routing, like a buffet. Instead of ordering your meal and waiting for it to get prepared, you can get out of your seat and grab that prepared food yourself. Key benefits to this approach. There are two major benefits to a single page apps that client-side routing unlocks. For first, load time efficiency can go up. I say can because of the server-side routing optimization I mentioned previously, which may cancel out any performance gains, but there This is a noticeable difference for resource-hungry frameworks like React. The view and stability, all of this use some form of client-side routing to keep JavaScript load time to minimum. For instance, if I went from one page on a React app to another using server-side routing, from one page to another server-side routing, the browser would parse and re-render the whole page using JavaScript. This can severely impact your time to interactive and accessibility concerns you can learn about here. Second, you can now build dynamic app like interactions. Animated page transitions are the easiest point out here. Since you have fully control loading new content and applying it to the page, you call pull of all sorts of CSS tricks like crossfades, pop-out models, tab sliders, and more. Не знаю такого. Жестко. Just a visual comparison. Now that we have introduced spas plus client-side routing as a concept, let's see a side-by-side comparison with server-side routing. Say you receive your order for a juicy burger that cooked medium rare. The patty that's well done. Well, imagine this moment is clicking a link requesting to go from medium rare burger to well done burger. With the server-based approach. Me a medium rare burger. Request a well done burger. Clicks my plane and starts fresh. So it sends back my new well done burger. Here's how client-side routing may handle the request. So it sends a medium rare burger. We'll fetch a well done burger. Now that burger to HTML so we can parse. Now clear our page in this spa approach. we just request the resource. As well done, we can pick out the pieces we want to add to our page and perform the DOM manipulation of JavaScript. This doesn't have much performance benefits when we're talking HTML files, but if that HTML has some JavaScript and styles attached to it that we can also fetch, but styles attached to it that we can also fetch, like say, a lot of room for performance gains. Wrapping up, so which should I choose? Although SPA seems like the silver bullet for any website, there's a case to be made for either approach, and the most obvious win for server-side routing is, well, it's just simpler. You need to write and maintain all those clicks listeners. Just let the browser do the serving for you. You'll often use a framework, specific libraries for SPA like React Router. But learning and updating JS libraries is always more overhead. The second win for server side is no accessibility worries. Then you handle all the routing client side. On the routing client side, you run the risk of hurting screen readers and keyboard experience. For instance, you will need to alert screen readers users that new content has appeared on the page whenever they click a link. And for keyboardists, you'll need to make sure they're focusing the right element when something new swipes into view. But if you're addressing these concerns confidently or using a robust library to do it for you, SPA are a great way to go. Was through a lot of the stuff discussed in this lesson and much more. And there's sections up to nested. Right. You need to read through. This complication goes to very simple. Client-side JavaScript to manage. To leverage the power of this mesh routing in React with help. The JavaScript takes over the duty of handling the routes. The application client-side routing helps to enable single page applications without refreshing. As the user indicates, for example, when the user clicks a number element, the URL changes and the view of the page is modified accordingly within the client. Real multi-page application So every time you click on link navigate with the client-side routing, you never have to leave the page you own. Bring the microwave. Missing spices each. To your right. Client-side routing allows for nice app-like interaction. Since you're controlling the routes, you can make fancy. A lot of caveats can be missed. Routers reload, notify. When you can't reach, you'll need to notify screen readers. Manual, however, with the help of a robust library, you can often address this concerns. React Router is standard routing library in React application by using React Router to specify React components that can be rendered based on the route. Окей. Ладно. Завтра тогда пройдем еще раз этот туториал. Потому что у меня не сработало все, что здесь было. Поэтому переделаем заново. Ну, вроде, ну, типа, несложно. Если в общем. Более-менее понятно, что происходит. Так что завтра еще перечитаем, переделаем. И нормально будет. Так. React Router, fetching data in React. That React. You have already performed data fetching. So some stuff covered in lesson. Nice. Nice. Но это уже завтра. Ладно, всем спасибо.